Welcome back to another episode of Dugout Talk. Today is Monday, March 1st. Happy March to you guys. We got our very first taste of some baseball yesterday. Some spring training games were played. Um, Thankfully, we're officially back now. Today is the Arizona Diamondbacks edition, episode number 31. This one's going to hit pretty close to home for you, Steven. This is your team.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah. All right, let's jump into some history talk. So today in 2019, it's already been 2 years. Bryce Harper reached his free agent contract with the Philadelphia Phillies, totaling about 13 years and 330 million all told. At that time, it was the most ever guaranteed to a baseball player. 26-year-old, six-time All-Stars, historic agreement eclipsed the 13 and 325 that Giancarlo Stanton had signed with the Marlins back in November of 2014. But unfortunately for Harper, his record is very short-lived. As just a few weeks later, the Angels give Mike Trout a 12-year, $426.5 million contract to keep him in Los Angeles for the next decade.
Can you imagine if the Phillies had actually gotten Trout, like Harper said he was going to do to recruit him?
God, I
Like
don't know how you pay anyone else.
I don't know how you pay anyone else either, unless if you're the Padres and you have a secret trust fund that is full of millions of billions of dollars.
Yeah. those offshore bank accounts, they come in handy.
So my day in history happened 28 years ago today in 1993. George Steinbrenner is reinstated as a general partner of the New York Yankees. Commissioner Fay Vincent at the time banned Steinbrenner from Yankees day-to-day activities for his relationship with convicted gambler Howie Spira.
Yeah, I wasn't alive for it. This is 5 years before I was born.
Yeah, same as me.
5 years and 3 days before I was born, to be exact. I haven't really delved too much into the whole Watergate scandal in the first place. I heard it was really shady, but I mean, I think George Steinbrenner probably gets, as a Yankee fan, a realistic Yankee fan, I feel like George Steinbrenner gets more credit than he deserves for the winning teams that they had. It wasn't really until he stopped trading every young prospect we had that our young prospects came up and started winning us championships. If a guy came up and wasn't hitting 425 in his first 15 games, he'd trade him. Guys like Jay Bruner. Imagine if they would have had Jay Bruner on those teams. In the 90s to go with. I mean, Jay Bruner, you could argue, almost had a better peak than guys like Tino Martinez and Don Mattingly, who are actually on those teams.
Bro, I ask myself that question with the Diamondbacks just about every day. I was even asking my grandpa about it yesterday. What could have been if we didn't trade like half of those guys to the Nationals at some point?
Yep, exactly. All right. Today we have a team to cover. That team is the Arizona Diamondbacks. We'll cover their 2020 season. Give it a nice little review. They finished 10 games under 500. That's a 25-35 record. That was last place in the National League West. Looking at their season last year, they had 21 losses in losing streaks. 21 of their losses came in losing streaks. They had losing streaks of 8, 5, 5, and 3. In a 162 game season, you're probably bound to have like 10 different losing streaks, but in a 60 game season, that's hard to come back from. Like I said, that's 21 losses right there. So only 14 of their 35 losses, came naturally. The other 21 losses that they suffered were all during losing streaks where they didn't win in between. And that can really, an 8-game losing streak could almost end your season, just in general, especially in such a short year. We also found out last year that Zach Allen is really good, and not many people realize this. Another, sub-3 ERA. He had a sub-3 ERA in his time with Miami, and he had a sub-3 ERA in his time in Arizona last year, and then he had another sub-3 ERA, well, I guess 2 years ago now, and had a sub-3 ERA last year. So Zach Allen, keep an eye out for that name. Not many people outside of Arizona know him. Their offense finished top 10 in a variety of categories, mainly runs, hits, doubles, triples, stolen bases, strikeouts, batting average, and slugging. Um, Not a bad year for their offense. I think it's better than what their record showed. The unfortunate part is they did suffer some pitching woes at certain points in the year, but they did unveil new uniforms. I wasn't a big fan of their previous uniform sets, but I didn't hate them. What were your thoughts of their uniforms before they turned them into these?
Well, as you can see, actually now I have a I guess it's technically
Mm-hmm.
outdated. One of their dark gray jerseys. By the way, I
Mm-hmm.
love this color. I was a
Yeah,
big fan of
yeah,
this.
I was always a big fan of the
A
dark
lot of
gray.
people were not a fan of it, but I was one of the rare people that was like, no, this is a sick color.
Yeah.
I guess as far as the uniforms go, it was unique. I think they had way too many uniform combos though.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought they were unique. I like the white jerseys with kind of the teal, kind of a throwback
Mm-hmm.
to their first days, to their early
Yeah.
days as a franchise. I think that's a really cool one. I've always liked the black one with the A on the left
Yeah.
bicep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like the uniforms. I'm not opposed to them. I just think early on, when they first came out with this uniform set, they had way too many combinations and
Mm-hmm.
didn't really work out for them. But now I think they've got a better handle on it. I think as far as their 2020 season goes, 25 and 35, it's amazing they were able to finish 25 and 35,
Yeah.
considering they went 2-18 at one point in a 20
Mm-hmm.
game stretch. And during that stretch, their offense went cold. Their pitching was absolute trash. It didn't help that I think because of the COVID shortened season and because baseball operations just shut down for 3 months kind of abruptly, I think a lot of their pitchers really got affected by that in a lot of ways. And I'm not gonna pinpoint, try to make excuses that like all of it wasn't for COVID, we would have made the playoffs. Like, no, I'm not gonna go there with that. But I do think that guys like Madison Bumgarner, Robbie Ray, they did. I think the abrupt shutdown in operations definitely affected them throughout the year. Because Bumgarner was not good. He was
Mm-hmm.
awful to watch, scary to watch. He was one of those guys that you did not want to see him take the hill sometimes last season. Zach Gallen, though, he was, like you said, he was really good. He made 25 consecutive starts, I believe, where he allowed 3 earned runs or fewer.
Mm.
Unfortunately, he got no run support those games though because he was absolutely dominant. So hopefully this year he gets some of that run support when he actually goes out there and he can pitch like he has as early as he has in his career. And by the way, I didn't know who Gallen was either until we traded for him a couple years ago. We gave up Jazz Chisholm in that trade. So I didn't know who he was either. But we also have another guy from the Marlins, Caleb Smith.
Yep.
And he did really well in a small sample size of games for the Diamondbacks last year. So he's another guy to keep an eye on. Yeah, I think last year was just a weird year for them. I don't think the 25 and 35 record was legitimate. I think in a full season, they would have been much better. They would have been maybe 500, at 500, maybe a little under, maybe a little over. But it wasn't really that different of a team compared to what they had in 2019. And in 2019, they kind of took the baseball world by storm and finished second in the division when nobody thought they would. So it's going to be interesting to see how things go for them this year. They still have the team they have from last year going into this year still relatively similar, with some changes mostly in the bullpen, and we'll look into that in a second. But yeah, I think last year wasn't necessarily legitimate. I just think they would have done a lot better in a full season. It's just that 2-18 stretch and 20 games really killed them. And like you said, when you have an 8-game losing streak in a short season like last year, that can almost end your season before it even starts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of Caleb Smith, he was kind of one of those breakout guys for the Marlins in 2019, kind of like striking people out like crazy. Obviously ended up coming back down to earth a little bit, but he should be another good piece for that rotation. Looking at their offseason, some of their changes they've made. They brought Tyler Clippard back, as you can see there. Clippard is featured in their old sets of uniforms. That's from 2016. They also got Ben Heller which I promise you, Ben Haller is going to be a good player. He in every one of his very limited stints that he got with the Yankees, he was always very good. I think he's got an ERA of like 3.2 or something like that in like 30 or so innings spread across like 4 years. But Ben Haller, you should see him at some point in time for the Major League club, and I'm sure he'll probably put up a sub-3 ERA again. Joakim Soria, he figures to be a late innings guy. Chris Davinsky, another late innings guy. Ryan Buchter on a non-roster invite, should be a potential player for one of those last roster spots. Will be interesting to see how he performs this spring, if he can kind of nail one of those down. Brian Holliday, a backup catcher, always important to have. And he's actually shown some flashes of being a relatively decent player in his career. And then obviously the veteran infielder is Drupal Cabrera. That's a signing I really like, as Drupal Cabrera has always been a really sneaky good player, seemingly regardless of where he goes and regardless of the circumstance, and regardless of his playing time. He always seems to be a key piece. Looking at some of the subtractions, Junior Guerrera, pitcher, Mike Leake, who they acquired via trade, they let him go. Hector Rondon left in free agency. They lost their backup catcher, Ramos Garcia, via waivers to Texas. Kevin Crone they let go, and John Jay elected free agency. Not a bad list of subtractions when you look at it. You know, this is going to be a team that really they're not losing much, so they're just going to continue to build entering next season.
Right. I think the important thing they did here was they bolstered the bullpen, and the bullpen was the biggest thing they've needed help in, and they've needed help in their bullpen for years. So it's a good thing that they've gone out and actually made some of these additions, like Clippard and Soria, even Davinsky. I know Davinsky's kind of been up and down since 2018 with the Astros, but I think this is a chance for him to kind of rebuild his value and to find himself again. Joaquin Soria, I think he's going to be a really good closer for them. There's some people in Arizona saying that he's the best relief pitcher signing they've had since J.J. Putz.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's been a long time. That was a long time ago. So Soria could be a really good closer for them. We've had the Diamondbacks have had some questions in the closers role for the last few years as well. So hopefully for them, he's a mainstay there. They really need someone to anchor down that back end of the bullpen. Ben Heller, I was kind of curious about this addition, and I'm not really sure if he's going to be on the opening day roster or not for the team, because there's a lot of veteran guys that the Diamondbacks have added in the bullpen. So I'm not sure where Heller stands. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts the year in AAA, but if he does put up good numbers in spring training, close to what you said his career numbers were, I could easily see him being in the bullpen on opening day, or at least getting really close. Brian Holliday, I'm not really sure if he's going to be a prominent player for the team. The Diamondbacks have a habit of adding some veteran catchers on non-roster invites just to give them a chance, more or less. I think if Holliday's willing to go down to Reno, their AAA ball club, to play some games, he'll probably stay with the team. I know that they've done that most recently with guys like Hank Conger. I know they've done that in the past. And then as Drupal Cabrera, this signing was really interesting to me because I was pretty confident that Katel Marte was going to be the second baseman this year. In my personal opinion, Marte is a better infielder than he is an outfielder. But the nice thing is he has that versatility where he can play both. He can play in both spots. So it could even be a situation where Marte might still play. He might still play both positions this year. I don't know how willing the Diamondbacks are going to be to do that, because in 2019 he started dealing with back problems towards the end of the year, and they thought it had to do with him switching from outfield to infield, and that was kind of what the thought was. So maybe Asdrubal Cabrera is going to be a mainstay at second base. I'm not exactly sure what they're thinking here. I've also heard that Marte is going to be taking reps at shortstop this year, so it still sounds like they're planning to use Katel as a super utility guy. And the Asdrubal Cabrera signing isn't bad. He's a good veteran presence. to have in that clubhouse. He's kind of like Wilmer Flores when they brought him in a couple years ago. Flores was there to be kind of a versatile option for second base and even some first base here and there. So I don't think it's a bad signing either. It's just I was a little curious when it happened, just because it kind of seemed out of the blue. But I think I told you this too during the offseason. I really wasn't sure if the Diamondbacks were going to do anything because I don't think it was until late January before they finally started to make some moves. Because before February, the biggest move they had made was Ryan Buchter, and now they've gone out and done a few more things. So it tells me, based on what they've done this offseason, they feel like they have a chance to at least make some noise. Considering the Dodgers and the Padres are as competitive as they are and as good as they are on paper, this at least says to me the Diamondbacks are at least trying. They don't feel like they need to rebuild. They don't feel I'd say probably they're still in a retooling phase, but they don't feel like they need to rebuild right now. But we'll see. We'll see how this actually works out for them. I think these are low-key good signings for the team for what they can afford and what is in the division. I think this is at least them telling fans we're trying to put a good team on the field this year.
Yeah, and it's not like there weren't that many real big name certified bona fide studs in free agency this year either. I mean, Trevor Bauer before last season, was a career like 4 ERA guy. Was probably better off being a 2 or a 3 in your rotation. Hadn't really proved himself as a number one. Marcell Ozuna has had some up and down years. There were a lot of guys who, weren't the Bryce Harper, the Manny Machado, level of players in free agency that, that they could have gone out and got. They played it very smart. They, played within their budget. And, they're still putting a competitive team on the field.
Exactly.
And looking at that competitive team, looking at the competitive lineup, I like Cole Calhoun to lead off. Am I understanding that you guys kind of have done that with Calhoun last year?
Yeah, he was primary leadoff guy last year.
I kind of went with you on that one. I saw your lineup. Now I was thinking maybe like Cabrera, maybe Ahmed, maybe Escobar, but I'm like, hey, if Cole Calhoun, if the Calhoun's going to be the leadoff hitter, then Calhoun's going to be the leadoff hitter. I like Katel Marte in the number 2 spot, playing center field. I like his Eduardo Escobar, the other switch hitter, playing third base. Like David Peralta, the left fielder, hitting 4th, cleaning up. Hitting 5th, I have Christian Walker. I almost put Walker in the number 4 hole. I have him hitting 5th at first base. I have Nick Ahmed, the shortstop, hitting 6th. I have the last switch hitter in this lineup is Drupal Cabrera, hitting 7th at second base. I have Carson Kelly, the catcher, hitting 8th, and then the pitcher spot to round it out. Now, I know I have Tim LeCastro in a picture up there, and he's not in the lineup. But, man, I love Tim LeCastro.
Well, here's the thing about LeCastro, and I think maybe the Diamondbacks went with Cabrera because they may not feel like LeCastro is an everyday guy, which it kind of does make sense. I think in the future, he's probably a better 4th outfielder. Yes. But this guy, not a lot of people know this, but he is one stolen base away from tying the MLB record for consecutive stolen bases without getting caught.
Yep.
And Ricky Henderson holds the record right now. LeCastro is 26 for 26. He needs 1 more to tie it, 2 more to break it. So that's something to keep a lookout for this year. I didn't know that until like the last day of the season last year. Unfortunately, he didn't get it. But
and Foolish Baseball on YouTube, if you guys look up Foolish Baseball, he has a show that he does called Baseball Bits. He actually did a whole episode about Tim LeCastro and why he's so much better at getting on base than everyone else, it seems like. So check him out.
He's the king of getting hit by pitches too.
Exactly. Yep, that he is.
So my lineup is pretty much the same as yours. Cole Calhoun, I've got him in the leadoff spot. I think he's a good addition to have there. He's a power hitter. Hopefully he can boost the batting average up a little bit. I'm sure the Diamondbacks would like that from him. But he's kind of he's a good jump starter for the offense. Katel Marte in center, I got him hitting 2nd. Eduardo Escobar, the third baseman, I got him hitting 3rd. And the 3 through 5 spots were a little difficult for me because they've kind of flip-flopped between Escobar, Peralta, and Walker, all in those all in those spots. Either one of those guys can really hit in any of those positions, but Escobar has been the primary number 3 guy for them since he arrived in 2018. David Peralta, I got him hitting cleanup. He can also be a leadoff hitter for them potentially too, but I think they like him more in the middle of the order. Christian Walker, got him hitting 5th, a little bit of a late bloomer. I don't know if Orioles fans remember, but he broke in with the club in 2012, kind of a little early, but didn't really see major league time again until 2017 with Arizona, and he's proved to be a good mainstay for them since. Asdrubal Cabrera, the veteran second baseman, I got him hitting 6th. Nick Ahmed, whose jersey I'm actually sporting today, got him hitting 7th. Carson Kelly, the catcher, I got him hitting 8th, and then the pitcher spot got him hitting 9th. I think this is actually a very well-balanced lineup. They have 3 power hitting switch hitters in this lineup, which I haven't seen anything like this since the Yankees had Teixeira, Swisher, and Posada all in one lineup. So I think this is really interesting. I think it's good to have 3 really capable switch hitters in there because you can throw them all in against anyone you'd like. I think overall they've been a really good offensive team over the last few years. I don't see why this team couldn't produce the same offensive numbers again. I think the only thing I'd say is the batting averages probably need to go up for a lot of these guys because as this is a little more of a power friendly lineup than it is a good batting average lineup. But we'll see. I think this lineup is very capable of at least carrying the team this year. This is kind of the one area I'm not really concerned about going into 2021.
Yeah. Another part of a competitive roster is the rotation. Looking at how our rotation's set up, same guys, just slightly different positioning. I like Madison Bumgarner to be the ace of the staff. I think that just because of his veteran leadership, Zach Allen, you may almost argue at this point is a potentially better pitcher. But Madison Bumgarner's got to be your number 1. He would demand it. He will demand. I think he's set for a big comeback here because Bumgarner doesn't like to lose. He doesn't like to lose often. So I have him as the number 1, Gallen the number 2. I have Merle Kelly the number 3, Caleb Smith, as we mentioned earlier, the number 4, and then Luke Weaver, who I've always been a fan of, even going back to his St. Louis days. I have him as the number 5. Luke Weaver, I'm going to hope has a big bounce back year. I know that when he came back from, I believe it was Tommy John last season, it wasn't a very good, short stint with the club last season. But, this year is a new year. From what I understand, there's a lot of players from a lot of teams who said last year was just very hard for them to, whether it be guys who were fully healthy entering the year, guys who were hurt entering the year. It was a very hard year to try to navigate for a lot of guys.
So Weaver didn't have Tommy John surgery. He had an elbow injury, but elected not to get Tommy John.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was what happened with him. But I got the same guys in my rotation. Bumgarner, I like him as the ace. He's the veteran guy out there. He's the guy that you want to put the command in your season. Zach Gallen, I like him as the number 2 right now, and I agree. I think this is going to be a big year for him to prove himself. This will be like a real full season for him. So it'll be interesting to see how things go for him going in this year if he can maintain that consistency. Merle Kelly, he was actually really good with them last year. His season got cut short in September because of an injury, but he was really good for them in that small sample size last season. I think that he's proven that he is capable of being a consistent starter for them. Maybe number 3 in the rotation is a little high, but considering what the rotation consists of, I think it's a good spot for him. He's a veteran presence there because Gallen, Weaver, and Smith collectively, they don't have more than 4 years major league service time, I believe. Luke Weaver, I like him as number 4. Caleb Smith, I like him as number 5. They have a bright future with this rotation, in my opinion, especially if Weaver can come back to his 2019 dominance and if Caleb Smith can have continual success like he did in a short stint with Arizona last year. And if they can get the best out of Madison Bumgarner in a full season, they have a lot to look forward to with this rotation. I think just the biggest question for me is, can Gallen, Weaver, and Smith maintain that success, and can Kelly maintain that success too? There are questions surrounding the rotation, but they have a very high ceiling, and I think when it goes well for this rotation, it's going to be very fun. They're not going to necessarily need the offense every night to back them up, although it will help them if that offense can come through. But this is a rotation to keep an eye on. I think this could be a sneaky good rotation, kind of going into the year.
Yeah. And another part of a very competitive roster is your bullpen. Looking at our bullpens, I like Joakim Soria to be the closer, at least for the opening day. I like Tyler Clippard to be a late innings guy for them, probably 7th or 8th inning. Chris Davinsky, I'm primed on a Chris Davinsky comeback as well. I think 2018 and 19 were kind of flukish for him. He's never really shown other signs of wearing down or anything like that. So I think that he's definitely primed for at least a comeback to earth. Johan Lopez, a guy that I've liked since I first saw him in 2019. He pitching really good late innings. He had a little bit of a down year last year. That's fine. I'm willing to discredit it. I'm looking forward to seeing him in another full season this year. Kevin Ginkel, the right-hander, Stephen Crichton, the right-hander, a couple of younger guys. I have Ryan Buchter making the opening day roster, just another lefty to have in there. And then Alex Young, the kind of, I don't want to say failed starter, but I think it's very clear that they probably will like him more moving forward in the bullpen.
Alex Young reminds me of Josh Coleman a lot.
Okay.
And I say that because when Young broke in with the team in 2019, he was really solid for them to start. Kind of ran into some struggles midway through his 2019 stint, but he still posted a respectable 3.5 ERA.
Okay.
Last year they used him primarily in the bullpen, much like they did with Coleman after his first year. I think Young is a good guy to have on the opening day roster because he can easily slot into the rotation, especially if there are struggles somewhere down the line. So yeah, my bullpen looks very similar to yours too. I think Joakim Soria will be the closer on opening day. I think they're expecting big things out of him. He's kind of that veteran presence you want to have in the back end of your bullpen. And if he is being compared to the likes of JJ Putz, or if his signing is being as hyped as the JJ Putz signing was, I think there's a lot to look forward to here for Diamondbacks fans. Tyler Clippard, he's back. I like him as the 8th inning guy. And then as far as the rest of the bullpen goes, they have a couple guys who can be long relief. They have a couple guys who can be set up. I think Chris Davinsky is going to be the 7th inning guy. Kevin Ginkel could also be the 7th inning guy. Ginkel wasn't really good last year, but again, in a COVID-shortened season, I'm willing to discredit what his season was last year. 2019 was much better for him. I think that's more so what the team is expecting from him. And then they've got Stephon Crichton, Johan Lopez. They are capable of being long relief guys. They can also be 7th, 8th inning guys as well. But they're innings eaters, so if their starters don't do that well, they can throw these guys in there to eat some innings up. And then Taylor Clark and Alex Young, I put these two guys in the bullpen. Clark actually had a really good season last year, much better than his 2019 rookie campaign. I think he is going to be on the opening day bullpen. He's also capable of starting, so if they need to eat up some innings, maybe if the team even decides to go with a 6-man rotation, they could have Clark and Young compete for that. I didn't initially think about a 6-man rotation putting this together, but I think the more I think about it now, it wouldn't surprise me if they did decide to go 6-man down the line, especially with younger guys. And most of the rotation didn't pitch a lot last year to begin with. So I could easily see them going 6-man, and Clark and Young could easily compete for that. But I like both of these guys in the bullpen to start off. I think for Clark, it'll boost his confidence. For Young, it's more to kind of keep him fresh and maybe use him here and there as a starter. So, I like the bullpen, but there are some questions here just because the bullpen has been rather inconsistent. And it's kind of been a long running thing. This isn't just like the last couple of years. This has been pretty close to a decade that their bullpen has had a lot of inconsistencies. And so for me, I'm still a little uptight about how this bullpen might perform. They've got veteran presence, but they got young guys too. And in a 2021 season that's expected to be played in full, when you're going from a 60-game season to a 162-game season and making that jump, I expect there to be some kind of woes here and there. And I think the bullpen for me just has a lot of questions in that sense. Can these guys perform to their best abilities, or are they gonna flop again like they did before? And I'm talking mostly about like Davinsky and Ginkel.
Yeah. All right. Looking at some prospects to watch, another integral part of a team's success is, young players, their prospects, guys they're going to, rely on, whether it be the immediate future or maybe even as far as, 2 or 3 years ahead of time. Looking at my prospects that I have, I want to start out with Louise Frias. He's the number 8 prospect for Arizona. He's a starting pitcher. He is now 22 entering this season, and the highest that he has reached is A ball. Frias was really, really good in his minor league career to this point. He's made 40 starts. He's a 3.10 ERA, a 10.1 Ks per 9, and 182 innings. Frias is 6'3". I believe he's right around 180. So he's got a good build. I think he's probably going to put on a few more pounds. Not fat, but put on a few more pounds, gain a few extra ticks on the fastball, maybe even. And I think he's definitely primed to see some AA. Maybe even if he continues his success, maybe even some triple A time this coming season. So Louise Frias, definitely someone to keep an eye on. John Duplantier. I've called him Duplantier until I saw and looked how to pronounce his name. So Duplantier, John Duplantier. Debuted in 2019, despite having a not successful minor league campaign that year. He debuted, pitched in 36 MLB innings. I believe he only made 2 starts that season. The rest were bullpen. He pitched to a 4.42 ERA and an 8.3 K per 9. So I would say respectable. A limited, amount of time, limited amount of innings. I would say, you can't really expect too much more than that. In his minor league career, however, he is very, very successful. He's pitched 54 starts. He owns an 18-6 record, a 2.41 ERA, and a 10.5 K per 9. He had a sub-2 ERA in 2017. So John Duplantier, he's 26 now. I think it'd be crazy to think that he doesn't have a chance at least to make the opening day roster.
Right.
I think he may be another one of those guys who depends on how he does in spring training, how he faces opposing teams and so forth will kind of determine whether or not he maybe makes as a fringe, the 26th man, or if he will start in AAA. But I think it would be crazy to go, this whole season without seeing any of Duplantier on the major league staff. The last guy I want to cover actually shares a name with a car dealership here in State College, Blaise Alexander. There's a couple different car dealerships owned by a Blaise Alexander.
Oh, nice.
So he is the number 16 prospect. He's an infielder. He's played a little bit of second, third, and short. He's 21, and the highest level he has reached is A ball. Blaise Alexander is I don't want to say that he's Jeter-esque in his size and build. He's 6 foot, 160, so he's a couple inches shorter than Jeter. But much like what Jeter was, he's very, very thin at a young age. To be 6 foot, 160, that's thin. That's a lightweight. But he had a great 2018 and he had a good 2019. I think he has 2020 potential, 2020 skills, I should say. To this point, he's appeared in 152 games in the minor leagues. He spent 2018 in rookie ball and 2019 in A ball. He's in 152 games. He's got 12 home runs, 89 RBIs, 24 stolen bases, and a 288 batting average. And what's important is that he hit, I believe it was like 320 in his campaign and rookie ball in 2018, and then he hit right around 260 in his 2019 campaign in A ball.
Okay.
So I think if he can put on a few extra pounds, I don't think that's going to hurt his speed. I think more importantly, it'll help his power. And he very well could. He hit 7 and 5 home runs were his totals in each year. So I think that if he can put on some pounds, his swing looked really good from what I was seeing in scouting reports. So I think that if he can put on a couple extra pounds, he could gain some of that power that he's got lying in the waist. I think he could be a potentially versatile player for the Diamondbacks. Maybe another 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, they have I noticed when I was going through this prospect watch, they have some older guys who seem to be expected to contribute, but they have a lot of young talent that isn't expected to come up right away, but they are very much loaded on the young talent prospect or on the young prospects that down the line they're still going to be okay. The three prospects I want to cover, the first one I want to talk about is Alec Thomas. Alec is the number 2 prospect in the organization, 81 overall on the prospect line. His father is actually the director of training, I believe, with the White Sox.
Wow.
So he grew up in the game, and his dad is still there. Actually, there's a video. There's a video on YouTube of Alec Thomas hitting a home run in a spring training game against the White Sox, and he kind of was bantering with his dad from across the dugout. It's a cool little moment. You can look it up on YouTube. But Alec Thomas, he's a young outfielder, 20 years old, primarily plays center field. Highest level reached is high A ball. He has a very high ceiling, and I'm kind of surprised he's not the number 1. The number 1 is Kristen Robinson, but he also has a really high ceiling, so I guess you could flip-flop between these two. But Thomas has played about a full major league season's worth of games in the minors, 170 games. He has a 385 on base percentage, 455 slugging, 12 home runs, 82 RBI. So he does have some pop in there. I think the power is just going to be added as time goes on. 13 triples. That was a number that also jumped out to me. He's got 13 triples, 142 strikeouts, so he will strike out occasionally. 76 walks, though, so he does have a pretty decent eye at the plate. He's not afraid to take his bases, 27 stolen bases. And I imagine this number will probably go up. He's probably capable of about 30 to 40 stolen bases in a major league season and a 312 batting average. I think this guy is someone who could speed up the process as far as his major league time goes. I wouldn't expect to see him on the team this year, but I would say if he continues to put up really good numbers in the minors, he'll make some jumps across the levels, and he might be on the team as early as next year. That wouldn't surprise me one bit. I've watched him play a little bit. I think this guy is very capable of speeding up his development. So Diamondbacks fans, look out for him. I believe he got a spring invite this year too. So should be interesting to see how he handles that. The next guy I want to look at is Corbin Martin, and kind of like what you were saying about Duplantier, I think Martin also has a very solid chance of being on the opening day roster. The Diamondbacks acquired him in the Zach Greinke deal to Houston. He did pitch a little bit in 2019, wasn't great. He didn't pitch last year with the Diamondbacks. The 2019 stint was with Houston. But in the minor leagues, he's made 33 starts across 44 games. He's 11-4, 2.58 ERA in the minors in 192 innings pitched, 210 strikeouts. He's given up 62 walks, 203 batting average against him, though, in a 1.06 whip. So this guy has I wouldn't say he has a serious walk issue. I'd say it's about average. He'll walk guys on occasion, but he keeps the ball in play, doesn't give up a lot of hard contact. So when he gives up base runners, he's pretty good about keeping them on the bases. This guy could be an immediate contributor, maybe even to their starting rotation. If they decide to go a 6-man route, this guy could be vying for one of those spots. I would expect to see him on the team at some point this year, as well as Duplantier. Whether there's struggles in the rotation, whether there's injuries, or whether there's even some bullpen issues that they're having, I think they've got a guy like Martin down who is ready for major league time. So I'm excited to see if he is able to get a call up sooner rather than later. And then the last guy I want to look at is Seth Beer. He was also acquired in that Greinke deal in 2019. He's a first baseman outfielder. He's 24 years old. Highest level reached is Double-A. He also figures to maybe play a role with the team at some point this year. Maybe not on the same level as Martin, but I think the general consensus is he is ready. He's about ready for major league time. It's just a matter of when he gets the call. He's played 189 games. He has a 388 on base percentage, 508 slugging. He has 38 homers to his name, so this guy does have power. 145 RBI, 162 strikeouts, 71 walks. So he does strike out on occasion, but he's also much like Thomas, where he will take his walks and he'll get on base that way. He only has one stolen base, so this guy does not have by any means. So this isn't a guy to look out for to surprise you in that way. He does have a very respectful 294 batting average, though, to his name. I think Beer reminds me a lot of Walker. Walker's kind of a late bloomer as far as prospects go. I know the Orioles were really high on him, but it didn't really work out. But then the Diamondbacks gave Walker a chance, and he's been consistent for them. Not Paul Goldschmidt-esque by any means. Walker does have a good glove, though, so that's one thing that he probably has an upper hand on. And Walker has the power as well, just not the same kind of batting average. I think Seth Beer could probably play to the same way. He does have pop in the bat. I don't know about batting average wise. I don't know how he's going to do in that sense, but this is a guy I would also keep an eye on if you're a Diamondbacks fan. Martin and Beer especially should be on the team this year. Thomas might have a chance. But kind of just looking at how the prospect watch is, the Diamondbacks have a very bright future ahead of them. And the nice thing is they have a regime in the front office that isn't going to just trade these guys away. Back in the days of like Kevin Towers and Josh Burns, they would just trade away their talent before they could even really prove themselves. This regime is going to give these guys chances to prove themselves. I'm sure some of these guys they may not last on the team very long, but it's not going to be like all these guys won't be on the team in like 2 years from now. I think these guys are going to be here to stay for a while. So fans, keep an eye out on these guys. And I think a note on Louise Frias. He's another young pitcher that could contribute to the team very soon as well. So they have a bright future there, which is good.
Absolutely. A very loaded prospect pool indeed. Looking at some projections we have for them, I think that I could probably be more lenient with my ceiling. 82 and 80 is a very conservative number for me. I could be pushed probably as high as 85 or 86 wins. But I have said that 82 and 80 is a ceiling, 70 and 92 is a floor. They're going to be competitive. They're going to win right around as many games as they lose. So they're not a bad team. I don't think that they're going to beat the Dodgers or the Padres. So I think at best they're a number 2 wild card. Looking at a couple factors for these guys, obviously you have pitching questions. A couple of your rotation guys had some down years last year. Your bullpen had a down year last year. Just some questions as far as who's going to be the guy to kind of step up. How many guys are going to be better than they were last year? How many might repeat their success from last year or avoid the same failures they had last year? So I think that pitching questions will probably keep them from being as good as they could be. As I mentioned, there's going to be huge competition for the second wild card spot. If they are going to be vying for a postseason berth, it is going to be the second wild card spot. It's going to be interesting to see, teams like the Nationals might be fighting for that. Teams like the Phillies are probably going to be fighting for that. Maybe the Mets even. And you look in the NL Central, there might be, as many as 3 teams fighting for the second wild card spot. So that's second. I mean, it's pretty set in stone that the Dodgers are going to win the division and the Padres are going to finish, not necessarily close behind them, but close enough that they'll capture at least one of those wild card spots. So there's really like one open spot entering 2021 for the National League. And as I mentioned, they have the Dodgers and the Padres. They have to play them pretty often. like 18 games that you play
19,
against
19 each.
19 that you play against your division opponents.
Yep.
So that's what 30.
30.
So
That's 38.
38. Yeah.
76 overall against division
Yeah.
teams.
So I mean, 38 games against the Padres and Dodgers. Best case scenario, if you can go almost 500 in that span, I think you stand to have a really good season. How does your projections look for them?
Okay, so I may seem really optimistic here, but I'll explain why. I have their ceiling at 88 and 74, the floor 70 and 92. Here's the thing, and Torey Lovello does not get enough credit. He is a solid skipper. He has gotten the most out of his players at times when they were written out. You look at the 2019 season, they finished 85 and 77, got second place in the division, and they only got eliminated from playoff contention with 5 games remaining in the season. They were not supposed to be that good. They lost Paul Goldschmidt. They lost AJ Pollock. They traded away Zach Greinke, and they still managed to finish 85 and 77 that year. Lovelo and his staff know how to get the most out of their players. I don't expect any less from them. Granted, this is a younger team, and they got a lot of younger guys who expect to be on the team this year. But I think they are going to be a better team than what a lot of people are making them out to be. I can see them falling to 70 and 92 if they start running into injuries. They start they start to lose out on, they're not getting production from guys that they need production from. So that's why I can see this floor being as low as it is. But my three key factors too, Dodgers and Padres, they got to play them 38 times this year. They have to prove that they can beat those two clubs. If they can beat those two clubs, they have a chance. If they struggle against them, they're going to be crawling. They're going to be crawling for that second wild card. So, and having two monster teams in a division like that, it's like the AL East of the late 90s and early 2000s with the Red Sox and Yankees. It's very similar to that right now. My second factor, too many questions in the bullpen. Like I said, they've got young guys. Can they repeat their early success? Can they get production out of Davinsky and Soria? Can they get Johan Lopez back to the same level that he was at prior to last year? And it's just it's a historic thing for them too. When their bullpen isn't good, they really struggle competing for winning records and just competing with the rest of the league as well. So can the bullpen fulfill their expectations? And then my last piece, this will be a younger team. It's bound to be a younger team over time. It could be as early as this year, depending on how things go for them. Eduardo Escobar is going to be a free agent at the end of the year. Asdrubal Cabrera is going to be a free agent at the end of the year. The nice thing is they have a lot of young talent ready that can come and step up, but playing in a full season or playing a majority of a season, when you have young talent like that, there are more frustrations and downs than there are success most of the time. So I think that could be something that hinders them a little bit. But again, Lovelo and his staff know how to get the most out of their players. I think they're going to finish a lot more on the ceiling or closer to the ceiling than they will the floor, barring there's no like dramatic, just awful things that happen with the team. I think a lot of people are sleeping on them. I think they will be a team that surprises people. I don't think they're going to win the division, but I think they're going to they're going to be a pain in the neck to a lot of teams, including the Dodgers and Padres. They're going to be a pain in the neck to those guys, even if they don't necessarily have winning records against them over the course of the season. They're not going to be they're not going to be an easy team to beat.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of what they've always been. They've always been, even in their years when they were not that great, they were always still a very competitive team. So it'll be interesting to see, if they don't have that immediate success, how they kind of look for ways to battle around. As always, you can find us on our social medias. You can find us on Instagram at Real Dugout Talk. You can find us on TikTok at Dugout Talk. You can find us on Twitter at Dugout Talk 1. You can always find us here on YouTube at Dugout Talk, and you can also find us on Facebook at Real Dugout Talk. Appreciate you guys watching today. It's been a pleasure getting to cover your team, getting to talk about the Diamondbacks. I've always loved their their uniforms. I've always loved their stadium. Not a huge fan of the center field there at Chase Field, but I love the left and right field aspect of it. I'm not a big fan of like having the wall and the batter's eye be right there. I don't like it in.
That is a really high wall.
It is.
For
It
those of you
is.
who don't know, it goes from about 413 to left center and right center to 435 or something like that. I mean, it's 407 feet, but you have to hit it like 25 feet above for it to be a home run kind of thing. So yeah, that can be a little quirky. I've definitely seen guys get robbed of hitting homers because they hit it to that part of the field. So sometimes that's frustrating, but it is a neat ballpark. It's really fun, and they have a little fan exhibit out there too now. Just beyond right center field, it's a little like kind of team museum, I guess you can call it. It's pretty neat. I'll send some pictures to Cam of it, and we'll get it up on Instagram if you haven't seen it. But yeah, we're going to be covering the Colorado Rockies tomorrow. That's actually the team that plays 15 minutes down the street from where I am. So it might not be the most fun episode for Rockies fans, but we'll do our best to give you guys your due diligence and make sure that you still feel the love. We'll leave it at that. But until then, thank you guys for watching today. Please be sure to share this episode with your friends and family. Any Diamondbacks fans out there, please feel free to share this with them as well. We appreciate your guys' continual support. We've been getting a lot of support in the last week. It's been fun to watch that, see just kind of as we gain more traction. So thank you guys again for that. And until then, we'll see you tomorrow.
See you guys.